Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMac.com today.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we have special guest, Maxwell Ivey. Maxwell is known around the world as the blind blogger. He has transformed himself from a morbidly obese failed carnival owner to a respected amusement equipment broker to self-help author, motivational speaker, online media publicist, host of What's Your Excuse, and founder of WYE Podcast Network. So welcome to the show, Maxwell.
Well, thank you, Sheila. I appreciate you having me on the show, and you can just call me Max. So.
Okay. Now, this show was created based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this last year, or actually close to a year and a half now, we have had just about every situation show up. So I'd like for you to share about a time in your business or personal life where you experienced a difficult situation and how you got back on track.
You know, this is a fairly difficult question for me because, not to brag, I've been through a lot of difficult situations and come out on the other side of them. So I think what we want to talk about today is in 2018, I had prepared to go appear at 3 conferences in the New York area. I was going to speak at a WordCamp in New York City, let's see, I think the other 2 were also WordCamps. One was in Pittsburgh and the other one was in Delaware. And I was going to do those 3 speaking events and then go home. And unfortunately, on the way to New York, I got sick. And instead of deciding to go home, I decided, well, you know, I grew up in a carnival family. We are show people. We know about just making it and getting open. So I decided to just tough it out. I finished the week. I spent the entire week living on wintergreen lifesavers and hot tea with honey. My voice was just good enough to give my talk on Sunday afternoon. And my voice actually didn't crack until after the question and answer. And when I tried to close my talk by singing, which is one of my trademarks, my voice just basically said enough and quit. So I'm in New York. Since I haven't been able to talk all week, I haven't been able to sell all week. So I haven't sold any books. I haven't booked any new clients. So I'm sick, I'm broke, I'm about to be homeless in New York City. Eventually, some people online that I had connected with over the years before this, one of them provided me with the money for a hotel room. The other one provided me with the rest of the train ticket to get back home to Houston. And then when I got home, some friends from church managed to get me from the train station to my house. But it was one of the few times where, even though I was working hard and reaching out and trying to come up with a solution, I was like, this could end really badly. You know, this could be one of those things where when people find out about it, you may never be able to leave your house in Houston again, kind of a situation. So I got home. I was so sick, my balance was affected. I couldn't talk for 4 weeks. I couldn't sing for 8 weeks. Was severely dehydrated. And really, I was like, I thought I knew what I was doing. The speaking events were starting to come along. Yeah, they weren't paying me, but I was managing to make money from showing up and sharing my story at these events and networking, of course. And it's just like, this was like a reminder, sometimes doing something, one time or a couple of times is not proof that you're ready to do it in the big way that I tried to do it. So it was very demoralizing. It didn't break me to the point where I said I'm done, but it was just one of those things where, like, man, how did I get myself into this? Does this mean that I'm not really cut out to be a coach and a speaker and an author? And if that's the case, what do I do next? It was a very difficult time. So I laid down in my bed after I get home and I posted to Facebook. I said, okay, y'all, I'm home. No, y'all can stop worrying. I'm going to pull the covers over my head and go listen to some cartoons. And within 30 seconds, I hear an update on my phone from my good friend and client, Adriana Gavazzoni. She's like, Max, enjoy your 2 or 3 days, but we both know on Monday you're going to be back at this trying to figure out where you're going to go next, So I have some great friends who not only rescued me in New York, but who also rescued me once I got home and, kicked me in the backside and said, Max, you are not this person. You're not a quitter. You're the guy that just keeps doing what's in front of him in the expectation that it's going to all work out, So that was probably my worst experience since I quit being a carnival owner.
Wow. Well, that's an incredible story. It seems like I partially froze on the camera here, but I am still live. So I'd love for you to now share about the process you took to get back on track during that tough situation.
Right. Well, the most important thing I did was I listened to people who knew more about it than I did and had an honest discussion with what had been going right and what went wrong. And basically, it caused me to think about myself in a different way, because when you're doing anything, you have to go from that, I'm just happy to be here, to I deserve to be here and I deserve to have better opportunities and I deserve for people to pay me to share my wisdom and experiences with them. So my good friend Denise from San Antonio, she's like, Max, there's nothing wrong with what you were doing, but you can't do it the way you were doing it. So what I realized and what I decided was that for the next year, I was not going to take a speaking engagement. I was not going to attend a conference unless it was here in Houston, or unless they were going to pay me a check, or unless they were going to provide my expenses. And when I say that, I mean that I would verify that they were going to provide my expenses. So I decided to do that for a year. And here's the really cool thing that happened. It's something I should have known from earlier in my life. When I decided that I wasn't going to take any events without a fee or that weren't local, events here in Houston started showing up where I was invited to speak. And then at the end of that year, I had the opportunity to speak at PodFest in Orlando, which is, the largest international independent conference for podcast hosts. And I had to tell the host, I said, look, Chris, I can't come. There's no way I'm going to, put myself in that situation, because it would just go against what I've learned. And I said, but if something were to happen where I could afford to go, then I would go. So the next thing I know, Himalaya, which is a podcast hosting company, decides to host a contest, and they're going to pay the airfare. And they wanted to just tell them why you should get the free airfare to Orlando. And trust me, if there's an essay contest, I'm going to win it. That's always been something I've been good at. So I got my airfare. Then I called Chris up and I said, look, I've got the plane ticket, but I don't have nowhere to stay. So he reached out to some of the other people that were speaking at the event. And the next thing I know, I'm sharing a motel room. And I was told that I would have to pay half the rent, but when it came time to pay the rent, nobody ever asked for the money. So if they ever come up to me at some point down the road, I'll pay them. But
Yeah.
it was nice that, so, then I had a room and I had the airfare and I could go without putting myself in financial or emotional stress. And that all happened because I was willing to say, hey, I deserve for people to take care of Max. I deserve people to pay Max and appreciate what he's capable of bringing when he steps to the mic and shares his experiences and how he's managed to overcome so many things in spite of not having a lot of skills, training, experience, money, talent, and oh, by the way, I'm blind.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible, Max. What a story, and something for those listening in. This is gold, because when we set our standards and teach people how to treat us and show people how we expect to be treated, we get people to rise to that occasion. So it's what we accept in our life that we have to be willing to make the changes necessary to get the results we want.
Exactly. And I'm glad you're great at taking all of my, long-winded explanation and putting it into one very short sentence that people can remember.
Thank you. Yes, now I'd love to hear a little bit more. You're the blind blogger. You say you're blind. So were you blind from birth, or how did this show up in your life?
Right. Well, I was born with retinitis pigmentosa, which we didn't find out until I was about 4 or 5 years old. I was running into things and falling down more than the other kids in the family, so they had me checked, and we found out that was the cause. I lost my vision gradually at first, but by the time I entered junior high school, I had a big drop-off in vision to the point that I had to learn how to use a white cane and begin learning how to read Braille. It stayed constant. After junior high school, it stayed constant until I entered college. Mm-hmm. And by the time I graduated from college, it was down to what it is now, which is light perception, which I prefer to just tell people I'm blind, because explaining light perception to people is just hard.
Yes, yes. And so this is such a testimony to your resilience and ability to keep moving forward. And in life, sometimes these things happen. I have another good friend who's also legally blind, and he has a program. I'm not plugging his program, but I guess I am.
Go ahead and plug his program, girl.
Yes, but his program is called Unblinded. And it's to support business people getting to the next level and working together to connect ecosystems and work together in a beautiful way.
Whoa, wait. Are you talking about Chris?
Sean. No, Sean.
Sean, the lawyer from New Jersey.
That's my good friend.
Yes, I met him last winter. He invited a bunch of us blind people to the Unblinded Mastery Sales Summit.
Yes, that's my good friend.
We probably ran into each other back then.
Yes, isn't that incredible? So there are really good ways to get plugged in to your community. As you're listening in, you may wonder, what community's out there for me? There are so many different people gathering together to support one another. And that's the thing. Ask for help when you need it.
Yeah.
And everything shows up. The right people, places, and opportunities show up just on time.
Right. As you probably know, I'm known for trying to teach people about the freedom to ask for help and for opportunities, because I had the benefit of being raised knowing I was going to lose my vision. So people were always drilling it into me. Look towards the person you're speaking to and never be afraid to ask for help. So I have that as an advantage over the rest of the world, because so many people feel like it'll make them look weak if they ask for help. And they feel like it'll make them look egotistical if they ask for opportunities. So I do my best to help free people from those fears. And I think the best thing I can do is to remind them to put the emphasis on the other person, to think about how good it makes you feel when you do something nice for somebody else, and then think about how good it will make a person feel who has spent a lifetime, in some cases, learning, training, practicing, to have somebody come along and go, I know you're the expert at this stuff. I really am struggling at this stuff. I know that you just own this area. So would you please help me? And pretty much a sincere ask is really all it takes. But, the world has this idea that when we ask that there's something wrong with us, that people will think less of us. But the truth is, if you can humble yourself to ask for help, or if you can think enough of yourself to ask for opportunities, then so many other things will happen. And I like to put it this way. When you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received from helping you.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've talked to over the years that when they hear it that way, they're like, that just makes so much sense. Just think about the other person. Think about how much better their day or life would feel to them if they had that, positive energy, that high that comes from being appreciated and being asked for your help.
Right. That does make a big difference. And I know I was raised kind of on my own a lot, and my grandparents were participating somewhat, and then I was in and out of foster care and on my own really young. But I remember my grandmother said, I want you to stand on your own 2 feet. Don't ask for help from anyone. You've got this. And so it was so hard for me. The world had to humble me in many different ways for me to start being able to ask for help, because it was something kind of ingrained. You just don't ask for help. In fact, Grandma would never help me unless I showed I could do it first. And then she'd be like, oh, since you're doing this so well, I'm going to give you this, whatever, a washer dryer or something like that. So it was kind of a little bit over the top.
Yeah. And then, of course, I like to remind people that it takes more courage for somebody to offer to help you than it does for you to ask. So when somebody comes along and offers help to you and you're like, you don't remember asking for their help, try to remember that it took courage on their part, and be kind to them. And I like to call this the graduate level or the PhD level of asking for help, because as you know, when somebody comes along and offers to help you and you don't remember asking them, it's like, who the heck do they think they are? I mean, they should mind their own business, because I'm doing just fine. I don't need their help. They should go help somebody who needs it. Is that familiar?
Yes.
So at that point, you just have to be courteous. You have to think about what it took for them to offer. But then I like to point out to people that there are many ways that we ask that we don't really think about as asking. And there's prayer, there's meditation. Some people use vision boards and the law of attraction. But the thing a lot of people don't think about is there are people in this world who are either know you well, or they know about you, a lot about you, or they're what I like to call intuitives. They, either from practice or they're just born that way, they manage to notice stuff about other people. They can see, read, hear what you're really wanting and needing, even if you don't come out and say it. And I tell people, go back and look at your blog posts. Go back and look at your social media posts. Look at them real closely and tell me you weren't really, between the lines, you weren't asking for this particular help or opportunity. In most cases, they'll go, yeah, I didn't realize it. I didn't notice I was even doing that. But like I say, there are people who know you well that will notice, and there are people who are just intuitive. They just pay attention, and they will notice. And so, try to remember that you probably did ask, or you probably were struggling and didn't have the courage to ask, or the humility. And this person noticed, and they came along and helped you. And what's really cool is this whole asking and accepting help. It can be a great way to begin a friendship and a relationship that can lead to even more things that you can do to help each other down the road.
Yes, that is something. Asking for help when you need it, and then being willing to accept gifts, blessings, the help that shows up, and that's going to make all the difference. Sometimes things show up just on perfect time, for sure. Now, getting into the intuition, being the listening, the hearing things or seeing things, if you can see or hearing. I'm imagining, and this is my imagination, Max, that you probably are aware of more things than other people because you listen deeper.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's something that happened naturally, or if it's something I do out of practice, or if it's just something I'm able to do because I don't have the distraction of the visual stimulus.
Yes.
I have a lot of friends who believe that I see the world more clearly because I don't have the distraction of my eyes.
It's really interesting. There are training programs where they actually will put a blindfold on people and have them start to become in tune to the other senses more. And as a child, I don't know, my mother was a nurse. She worked with a lot of different people, and she used to play that game with me. And she would blindfold me and have me go through the house and do, like, we would do a couple hours. And it was bizarre that she did that, but it really helped me to connect with things that maybe you would totally miss.
Did it help you deal better with silence?
It did in a way. I really appreciated it in an odd way.
Yeah, it went from something that is scary, something that you have to fill with noise, to something that you were okay with. Yeah.
At peace with.
Yes.
Really. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was it. So she had some wisdom there. Definitely.
Yeah. Now people pay hundreds of dollars to go places to have their senses deprived.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? And here we are. And I also did the what is it? Somewhere in LA, I forgot the name of the place. It's a restaurant where it's completely dark.
Oh, the dining in the dark experience.
Yes, I did that, and with a group of friends. And it was literally, when I first went in, many people started having almost like a panic attack because it's a different silence. It's, when you can't see, this whole sense is gone. And you have to trust they're going to give you the right foods. If you have allergies, I have like a ton of food allergies. And we were connected more. We had the deepest conversations, a group of about 20 people. And we had the deepest conversations, and we're more in tune with our emotions, each other's emotions, than before that meal.
You know what's funny about that particular restaurant is the whole dining in the dark thing was a fundraiser. It was a one-time thing that people did in different parts of the country to raise money for charities supporting vision loss. And it was never supposed to become something where it would become a full-time permanent restaurant option. But it did,
Yeah, and this was still a fundraising deal. Definitely, it was raising funds for the servers. Everybody was legally blind that served us, and so it still was definitely some type of a fundraiser they created in LA, and I think connected to a school or something there. But it was quite an experience.
I think you mentioned an important thing: trust, and because you're nervous. It is a different kind of silence, and also anytime something makes a noise in that situation, it's a much louder noise.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you heard about our new ice cream chain that they're working on starting here in Texas? They've already got a couple of locations.
No, what's that?
It's called Howdy Homemade, and it is a chain of ice cream stores. Like I said, I don't know how many there are yet, but I think it's pretty much just in Texas so far. And the owner is committed to hiring at least 80%, if not 100% of the staff being people with disabilities, from vision loss to mental to physical, such as paraplegics. And it opened to lines around the corner. Of course, it got a lot of free publicity before its opening. Mm-hmm. It's on the wrong side of Houston, or I would have went myself, But I was just wondering if you had heard about that. I was really impressed to find out something like that had happened in my own backyard, and I almost missed it,
Yes. So that's interesting. What are we missing? For those tuning in, what might you be missing that's right in your own town that you can connect to now with our very interesting times?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'd love to hear, Max, I'd love to hear about your books and programs.
Right. Well, I have written 4 books so far. I'm working on the 5th, which will be the conclusion of my first travel series. My editor is probably hearing me talk about her now, and she's probably going to email me later and ask me where the manuscript is. My first one is called Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, a Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success. Even to this point, it is still my most popular and best-selling. It includes my experiences of going from a carnival owner to a blogger and a online person. It has 11 exercises where people are encouraged to work through things that I've had to figure out for myself over the years. It encourages them to share their experiences with the book with me via my email address. And it includes me explaining how I answered each of these separate exercises in my own life. And it's a really cool little book. It's also available in audio, and so far it's the only one of my books that's available in audio.
Nice.
Yeah, my second book is called "It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag." It's about my experience with gastric surgery, preparing to have the surgery, changing the way I think about myself, losing the weight, having the surgery, and then how I've had to continue to change my lifestyle as I continue to live with the surgery now this is 2021, so this is 9 years since having the surgery. So it's a fun little book. The best chapter in there is the title chapter, because if you have a teenager in your house, you can't tell the teenager they're never going to have cookies again. We realized that if we bought one small bag of frozen cookie dough and split that 4 ways, everybody got a little bit of a sweet taste, but there wasn't another 30, 40, 60 cookies in the house waiting in the middle of the night for somebody to tell somebody, eat me, So real cool book. Everybody says they love the title. And let's see. The third one is leading you out the Blind Blogger's New York City Adventures, How to Make Your Dreams Come True. It chronicles how I competed for and won one of the Amtrak Writers in Residency Awards. I used my prize to take a crazy solo trip to New York City during the Christmas and New Year's season of December 2016, January 2017. The way I managed to deal with fear, money, how I even decided where I was going to go and when. There's so many things in there that I think are really important to people trying to accomplish these big goals. And my favorite part of that book is the photos, because I basically just handed a really simple camera to anybody I could find and had them take pictures. And as a result, I ended up with 60 really good photos for the book. My favorite photo is the one where the Secret Service guy is taking my picture, and it looks like he's about to take me in cuffs. That one happened at the Trump Towers. That was a really cool experience. In my latest book, The Blind Blogger's First Speaking and Signing Adventures, How You Can Conquer Your Fears, it talks about my first experiences traveling, working to promote myself as an author and a speaker. Mm-hmm. And I would say the most important chapter in there is about how I have not always been a confident speaker or even confident in small to medium-sized groups, and how I went from, somebody who was not really thinking of being a speaker as part of his future plans to, some things that just happened, ordinary things that allowed me to overcome my fears a little bit at a time. And then the next thing you know, I'm standing in Philadelphia with a mic in my hand, speaking to over 100 people at MapCon.
Wow, that's such a journey. And that's something I'm thinking of all the books you mentioned, and the cookie one makes me think of environment matters. Set your environment up for success. Set yourself up for success, whether that's food or alcohol or drugs or a bad habit, something you procrastinate with. How can you change the environment you're in at the moment in order to have even more success in your life with less effort? I just love that.
Right, and that's a very good expression of the book, because there were so many small changes and new habits that went into being successful with the surgery and continuing to be that way, because it's difficult to change the way you look at yourself, especially when we're talking about weight loss and health. It takes a while before, when somebody says, you look handsome, or you look good, or you look sexy, it takes a long time before, when they say that, you don't argue with them.
Yes, and it comes from self-love.
Exactly,
loving
yes.
enough to make the changes and continue with it. And then that love, when we give ourselves love, something happens. Sometimes people feel like, well, that's kind of self-centric or whatever. But I believe that as we're caring for ourselves, we're able to then have even more love to give to other people because we have to refuel. We fill ourselves up with love and light, and then we can share that with the world.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because one of the things that is really starting to become a thing, and I'm glad to see it becoming more and more popular, is the whole idea that we have to protect ourselves to a certain extent. We have to be sustainable as an online person. So yeah, on the one hand, you want to provide content, you want to offer value, you want to help people, but if you're not turning some of that into income of some kind, or at least into positive reinforcement that you're doing good work, then you can't keep going. And I'm really happy to see more and more experts starting to talk about how if you don't refuel or rejuvenate yourself, you can't continue to help others.
Yes. Yes, that's so true. So if you have a business and you're not producing, start making those little changes, listening to podcasts, reading books, taking some courses, whatever correction you need to make to start valuing your time and charging a certain amount. Because I believe there's this Mary Baker Eddy, and I'm not a Christian Scientist, but she says, what blesses one blesses all. And I really believe that if you're helping people, you're out there producing content, creating something that's going to help people, it's like this law that you're to be reciprocated. Now, if you're not getting the compensation, are you your own block? Like Max said in the beginning, he had to change his standard on what he would accept, and all of a sudden he got paid to travel, and he got paid to do things, whereas before he wasn't. And so that was a block that he had to remove.
Yeah, and I have blocks like that around clients and that I've been working on, because I love working with creative entrepreneurs who are in the early stages of their growth as an entrepreneur. I love working with people with disabilities, but for the longest time I had this block that I couldn't help those people because those people don't have money, because with a 75% unemployment rate among people with disabilities especially, it's like, I would love to help them, but who's going to pay me? How's this going to work? But what I've had to learn is there are some in that group that do have jobs or that do have savings or credit that are willing to invest in starting a business. There are, nonprofit organizations that are willing to invest. There are even government programs which are more difficult to deal with, but there are sources for money, and there are people with disabilities that have money. And I have really had to get over that particular block and, not only expect that I'm going to find clients in those communities, but that they're going to be able to pay me what I'm asking now, and, even more as I get more confident and ask in the future. And if it's okay, I'd like to segue into, you asked me what kind of offerings I am currently promoting or putting out there into the world. And what I do, the thing that I do that provides the biggest part of my funnel, to use the big kids' words, is I help entrepreneurs get exposure by doing the work to get them on podcasts, radio shows, online magazines, news articles. I do the research, I send the emails, I write custom messages based on their story. I mentor them. I've even coached some of them to do their very first podcast interview. So I do all the work. So all you have to do is show up, have a great conversation, and then know that you've got new content out into the world that will show people why they should hire you or buy from you. And you've also you've networked with the host's audience, so that people that were watching your interview on, say, which this conversation I'm having with you, Sheila. And by the way, I love the title of your book, Bootstraps to Bra Straps. I mean, that is just an amazing title. I wish I had that kind of creativity when it comes to titles. But, I do the work so that people can share their stories, reach new audiences, and grow their brands. And the most important thing I like to remind people is this is not all about selling. This is about building relationships, making new friends and new connections through having a conversation and telling your story.
Yes, that's beautiful. That is so incredible. And I just wanted to go back to what you were talking about with working with nonprofits, with the government, ways to make sure that you're able to continue helping people in your way. And that's something years ago, I was 23, I opened a gift store, 5,000 square feet, and it was $1 square feet,
Wow.
so $5,000 a month. And I had come out of foster care. And so my goal was to help young kids that were emancipating from foster care to also work at my store because nobody wanted to hire them. Do you know, I found a program the government created, and I worked with them and created an open source learning program. I had ended up buying five buildings, all gift stores, and I had close to 200 kids that went through the programs. This was a long time ago because now my kids are 23 and above. But that was the heart of that business. And the government, the different programs showed up to let me help those people. And then my business was also very blessed. I adopted 3 children of my own and raised my own 3. So 6 kids, raised them all through that, but it came from heart. So when you're doing something, coaching, writing books, things to help other people, keep looking because the ability to continue will show up. Just be willing. I had to do the work. Be willing to do the work. Fill out the forms. We would video record our training with a camcorder. These 20 pounds, and show it, and we would show all the trainings the kids received, and they all got much better jobs. So it was one of those things where just be willing to say yes, and then the funding will be provided, especially if you're helping people that don't have the funds, it will still show up.
Right. And I've been blessed to have that happen to me many times where it is amazing. And I think the important thing you're talking about there is you had to be willing to see things in a different sort of a way. And I like to talk to people about creative solutions finding because one of the things that I feel like people with disabilities have that's a big advantage is that we are forced from very early to learn how to not only find unusual solutions, but to adopt them. And I've noticed there are a lot of people who can make a list of ways that they could possibly accomplish their goal. But when they get to the things on the list that are hard, embarrassing, that require them to do things they don't like, then that's usually where the rubber meets the road, to borrow an old expression. So it's one thing to know what you need. That's what it's about. Knowing what you need to do is easy. Going ahead and doing it is the hard part. So, you have to be willing to do things that you don't especially care for. You have to be willing to ask for help, which is something a lot of people hate doing. And then you have to not really care too much about how you look doing it. I like to say that life ain't the Olympics. They're not going to give us style points, so stop trying to win them, And over the years, I've done some things that I just really didn't care for. At one time or another, back in my carnival days, I had grease all over me. I have helped set up a kiddie roller coaster in the morning and worked a kids game in the evening, and only had time enough to wipe the grease off up to my elbows and up to the cuffs of my pants. I've done a lot of things that I'm proud of them, because they were hard, difficult things, and there were things that, when you look back on, like, man, that was just nuts. Why did we do that again?
Right.
What were we thinking at the moment? But, those are things you can be proud of, because when you're willing to do the hard, nasty, embarrassing stuff, that's when you really can move forward, in my opinion, because nobody else is going to do that stuff for you.
That's right.
In our carnival days, a lot of times when we made opening, somebody would come up and ask my dad, well, how did y'all do that? And he would just look at them, and I was told that he would grin at them, and he would say, what, did we have a choice?
That's
so,
right.
So in my carnival life, I was raised to believe, well, we don't have a choice. We've got to figure out some way to get open so that people can ride the Ferris wheel and buy a funnel cake on Thursday night, or there'll be trouble. So I do encourage people to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to to help people get past some of these blocks as far as some of the things they're not willing to do in order to accomplish their goal. But I mean, I love to see people to take those small steps every day. But what's really cool is when you can do something that, you really don't want to do, but it's the only way between here and there.
Right. Yep. That's true. So true. Now, I'd love to get an example of somebody calling in or reaching out to you to maybe get into your program. What does that process look like?
Well, here lately, it seems to be people reaching out to me through LinkedIn. That seems to be where I'm having the best results of attracting people to me as opposed to having to chase them down.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, the only thing that's easier than repeat customers is customers you don't have to pitch.
Right.
So, just recently, I'm having a really fun experience with some new clients from Kazakhstan of all places.
Mm.
They are a company that manufactures adaptive technology for visually impaired people.
Mm.
And one of their products is echolocation. And some of the videos we have of this product is one kid is riding a bike with the echolocation and the other one is playing soccer. And a 65-year-old man who just had the device that first day, he's walking around smelling flowers and having conversations with people he's never met before. So they've got a really cool story. The founder's grandfather or uncle is losing his vision and trying to maintain a family cattle farm. So, some really good backstory along with a good product and some nice people. And then, of course, this week, I find out that I actually inspired one of the people they have worked with to record and share some music. Mm-hmm. And apparently, before they heard me sing, this 14-year-old girl, amazing girl, sings and plays guitar in Russian. Before she heard me sing, she was scared to sing. So now I understand. I've unleashed a floodgate of I don't know, is it Kazakhstanian blind people that are now putting themselves out into the world more.
Oh, wow.
And over the next few months, I'm going to be working to get the owner and his U.S. representative appearances on podcasts and radio shows so they can tell more about, why they're doing this. This one is the echolocation is a prototype. They've only got a few models of it so far, but they also have a really cool thing to teach people how to read Braille. And it can teach them so that as they're learning Braille, they can also be practicing their English if English isn't their first language. Or, say I wanted to learn Portuguese Braille, which most people don't know that when you change languages, the Braille characters have to change as well. So if I wanted to learn Portuguese Braille or Spanish Braille, their device would give me audio cues while I'm learning it. So I would also be learning a rudimentary part of another language. So it's a really cool device. And I've only been working with these people for a couple of weeks, but several of our posts have already had hundreds of views on LinkedIn. And I'm looking forward to getting to spend more time with their U.S. guy. His name is Elazar, but since I have trouble pronouncing his name, I just call him Houston because he's living just up the road from me here in Houston. But these are guys. They saw me as an influencer among people both sighted and people with disabilities, and they reached out to me and they said, we want you to help us promote the product and the services and get more exposure for what we're doing so that we can, and of course they have an end goal. Their goal is to attract more sponsorship or investors or nonprofit donations so they can take the first device into the second or third level of production, and so they can take the echolocation device into the first run of production. So, that's going to be our goal. And like I said, I've only been working with them a few weeks, but it's really exciting. And then about 4 years ago now, a woman from Brazil and an attorney that writes wonderful legal thrillers, mm-hmm. Adriana Galvazzoni, we got together, and I actually had to I had to tell her a little bit of a fib that she would be doing a friend of mine a favor if she would just go ahead and record her first podcast interview. That a friend of mine who had a show had a couple of guests cancel, and he was in a bind. And so she overcame her fear and did her first interview, and then she got hooked. And as she's grown her author's platform, not only has she sold more books, in fact, her first book was just rediscovered by people on Amazon, and it was a bestseller last week. Behind the Doors, the name of the book. And as a result of getting more and more exposure and growing her platform, she's selling more books. She's also winning multiple international awards for her writing. And some of that is my doing, some of that is her work, and then some of it is just the confidence that she has built in herself as I've worked with her. Because most people probably wouldn't think about this, but being a woman in Brazil in the legal profession it's very male dominated and male centric. And for the first couple of years, she wouldn't even allow her books to be published or sold in Portuguese or French or in Latin America through Amazon because she was concerned it might hurt her career. So she's gone from fear of nobody wanting to read her books and fear of it hurting her career to, now she's doing public speaking and book signings in Brazil and other places as well. So it's been a lot of fun to, first expose her to these opportunities and then to have her come to like them and then to see them show some results for her over time to the point where, we are very good friends. And she keeps telling me, Max, one of these days we're going to write a book. And I'll go, okay, what's the book going to be called? She says the book is going to be called The Blind Blogger and the Brazilian Lawyer: How Two Friends Conquered the World.
I love it.
And she's also convinced that very shortly, one or both of us is going to get to walk the red carpet, either for a book launch or a movie premiere or a public speaking event. So she's like, Max, just remember, red carpets, and I'm your plus one. And she likes to remind me ever so often, hey, Max, I've already bought the dress, So she's ready to be my plus one when these other things start to happen. But I do think she took it a little far when she recently asked me if I'd reach out to a couple people, see if we could get her some free jewelry. She's like, Max, I got the dress, but you're great at asking people for stuff. Maybe you can find somebody who loan me something really nice to wear with it. So these are the people I get to work with. I'm very blessed that I seem to attract people with great stories, with great work ethic. I'll find out what you need, and then if I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you, hey, I can't, and I'll introduce you to somebody who can.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Max. And for those tuning in, we'll be back after these messages, so stay tuned.
It's the holidays, and I'm dealing with an overwhelming sense of grief that is secondary to the loss of my family members that occurred during the holiday season almost 2 years ago. I'm attempting to resume my family traditions with a smile on my face, but my heart is troubled and sad. I'm grateful for the numerous friends and my support network that I am blessed with. However, I'm hoping that you can offer some insight and suggestions to help me keep my healing heart in perpetual motion this time of year. Thank you. Sincerely, Blue Christmas. Dear Blue Christmas, I'm so sorry for your loss. Losing more than one family member during the holidays is very difficult. I can't imagine. And one of the things that has helped me get through holiday seasons, because I've lost quite a few family members myself, was to change my holiday celebrations. To celebrate my loved ones that have crossed over in a different way gave me a new tradition. And that may help you as well. I'm not sure how you celebrate your holidays or how you did in the past, but save a place for them at the table, maybe have a ceremony for them and send them love, and then stop and pause for a moment before you plan your holidays this season and think about what, if they were living with you today now, what would they want for you as your relative? What would they want to see for your happiest holiday this year? For myself, with my children, I think what I would want for my children is for them to continue to celebrate
and live their best life every day, including on the holidays. And I would appreciate their memories and thoughts of me. So I think that may help. And just forming new traditions, because whenever there is a life shift, whatever it is, divorce, or kids grow up and they have their own family units, they can't travel to see us, whatever it is, our holidays are going to shift over time. And grieving a loss of more than one loved one is the hardest, for sure. Yet these are things that are going to happen. And so to have a new form of holiday will make a big difference for you. I hope this helps. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light.
If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mac Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and I have some news for you. Yes, you. I'm celebrating my 3rd year now on the station, and will be expanding the show to a global network as well. You may now find the Sheila Mac Show on all major podcasting channels, and if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, all the episodes are now available for viewing there as well. And I'm asking you for a quick favor. If you like the show, please help support the spread of this reboot channel on YouTube as well. My goal is to help as many people as possible through our interesting times to rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your business and personal life. I also wanted to share a little bit more about how I got here, what I do now, and how designing a business career and life on your terms is more than possible at any age or stage in life. I am an enterprisingly forward-thinking consultant, show host, and best-selling author. But how did I get here? Well, I began my career as an entrepreneur and property investment strategist back when I was 23 years young, when I boldly quit my government job with NASA JPL to open my first of 5 large gift stores, while also starting to invest in property. I got to work with some of the world's most loved companies, such as negotiations on leases with Warner Brothers and winning trips to London as the top-selling Crabtree and Evelyn provider in the U.S. for multiple years. My stores were built on heart as I gave back to the community I came from. So now, some of you know this and some of you don't know this, but as a young girl with parents who were not well enough to care for me, I was homeless at age 10, then in foster care, where it was really hard to get a job while in the system. I finally emancipated at the age of 15 to start college early. While running my stores, I worked with a government program. Back then, it was called Job Training Partnership Act, making my stores an open source training site where close to 200 at-risk youth started their careers. Yes, I began my career helping business leaders and working professionals to design a life they love, where they can have success in their careers and get to the business of life. See, a funny thing happened along the way. When I first opened my gift store, it was kind of crazy because I was this young upstart. That's what a lot of the store owners called me. My first store was in Montrose, California, in this sweet little hometown shopping park with other stores and restaurants nearby. And so I was the young upstart that didn't know what she was doing. At least that's what everybody said. And I didn't really care what they said. At that age, you know, their opinion was like, I don't really care. So that was probably a really good thing because I stayed focused on what I needed to do. And I had negotiated to lease out a 5,000 square foot gift store that needed a lot of work, and I got free rent and for about 6 months, and I had to start making the rent, which was $5,000 a month, which was a lot of money back then, $1 a square foot. And so I had to learn and relearn. I finally did hire quite soon in the game. I did hire a marketing expert, branding expert, I guess back then. And that lady really helped me to figure things out when I first started. And when you first start a business, especially when you're young, it was like I had no idea what to do, but I needed to learn because my rent was going to start coming due every month. And over that time, I started having more success. I did crazy things like stayed open until almost midnight every night, along with the restaurants who were very close to my store, while everybody else closed shop at about 5 or 6 p.m. So I was making more money from the start, and I just really, my store was to help my kids, and the products I sold was whatever the community wanted. I sold lots of things to people in the entertainment industry. I worked with cruise ships. I worked with many different people in the community. And later on, the store owners actually came to me and asked me if I would consult them and help them. I actually started buying my other buildings because I didn't like the idea of paying rent for years and years and years and not building equity. So I did get my real estate license through that and invested and bought my other 4 store buildings. And lots of the other store owners worked with me, paid me to consult and help them do what I was doing. And I didn't really even know it was called consulting. I just knew how to figure it out, I guess. And so that's how I started my career. And now, I raised 6 children, all that, and now they're grown. And so I get to come to work every day and do what I naturally do best as an enterprising and forward-thinking business leader. Through my show, courses, and live events, I guide entrepreneurs and working professionals like you through the profitable steps of building a business, creation to expansion, marketing from planning to implementation, wealth preservation through strategic planning and, yes, real estate investing, and lifestyle design so that you can earn more while getting back to the business of living your best life. So I do invite you to tune in here to KCAA Radio, and also I would really appreciate it if you went to my YouTube channel, Sheila Mac Show, and gave a subscribe and a listen to some of your favorite shows. And I do have some other exciting things, including a free gift to thank you. So if you go to www.sheilamac.com, that's SHEILAMAC, SheilaMac.com, there you can get a free gift to get started on your reboot this year. And now back to the show. You are tuning in to the Sheila Mac Show, where we answer real questions with real solutions to help you reboot your business and personal life. Now, I have reminded you about my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And the core of that book is lifestyle design. So it's going through chapters of different things that happen in everybody's life to one extent or another. We talk about starting over, rebooting, back on track after losing a loved one, a divorce, our kids grow up, we are parenting our parents, and more, relationships, ups and downs, renegotiating relationships, business, career, and every time you have a life shift, you have the opportunity to redesign your life. And so the main focus is every chapter will help you reboot through where you are. You go to the chapter that speaks to you during this time in your life, and then you go to the main focus of the book, which is lifestyle design and getting back on track. But this time, the difference is you get to live life on your terms. All right, so to learn more, go to SheilaMac.com. My name is spelt SHEILAMAC.com. And there I also have a free gift for you.
Looking forward to seeing you there. And as always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light.